a specific person this year was Austin Reaves, who obviously had a great season last year, particularly towards the end. And it seemed like they got him at 4 for 56. They got him on an amazing deal. They did a great job in general, but they got an amazing deal. Do you think, we obviously haven't spoken to him about this or his reps or anything like that, but do you think there's a world where like everything moves so fast that it was kind of like he didn't, I mean, I think a lot of people were thinking he might go for, 4 for 102 or something like that. And so like, it was almost like the teams with the cap space, everyone did everything in the first, 3 hours. And then all of a sudden it's like this guy's sitting around and he doesn't have the options he probably should have.
Yeah. What I do want to talk about the Lakers a little bit, but I think what's interesting. So my understanding with Austin Reaves is because of the Gilbert Arenas rule, the most he could have signed for is 4 for 80. So there would be this balloon payment. I don't know if I can't remember. I think it's in years 3 and 4, where, it starts out at 12 or whatever he signed for, 12-1, 12-4, whatever it is. And then it jumps in years 3 and 4. And he makes a ton of money in those 2 years, and it ends up being 4 for 80. So to get him back at what has been reported at 4 for 56, again, I was under the impression for the last 3 months that the most he could sign for with the Lakers was 4 for 52 or 4 for 54, but let's say it's 4 for 56. To get him back at that number, which is slightly above what the full mid-level would be, is phenomenal value. And I saw something, and again, this is not me just like bashing bad takes, but I do want to provide some context or some support of the type of player that Austin Reaves is, because I saw this thing on Colin Cowherd's podcast where he's like comparing Austin Reaves to Grayson Allen. He's comparing Austin Reaves to a couple other white players.
This is recently
that had worse or similar stats, and being like, you wouldn't break the bank for these guys. You wouldn't ruin your cap space, your cap salary cap for these guys. And I think if we look at like his total stats over the 2 years, like, yeah, if we're looking at that, if you're just looking at a website and saying, oh, this guy only averaged 10 points or whatever it was, dude, if you watched them play over the second half of the season in the playoffs, this guy is a secondary, tertiary shot creator and playmaker. They run offense through him. He's got a bag of tricks. He shot the shit out of the ball over the second half of the year. Like, he's a phenomenal player. And I know that, because of the rules around his contract, he could only sign for 4 for 80, and he could only sign this contract if he went straight back to the Lakers without them matching. The dude's worth $100 million easy in today's NBA. This is an incredibly valuable contract. He is an excellent player. And I think for me, when I think about some of the mistakes that the Lakers have made in the LeBron era in terms of their personnel and roster building, and this is not just the fit with Russell Westbrook. And I've talked about Russell Westbrook a ton. I always said he's the same player he was in Washington. He's the same player he was in Houston. Maybe he's lost a little bit of athleticism, but the Lakers knew what they were getting. It was a terrible fit for him. And then you see the type of impact that he had with the Clippers. The guy can play basketball. So I'm not just talking about that. You go back to 2020, they win the championship. 2021, good team, don't get out of the first round. And they basically had built a team around LeBron and AD with 3-and-D guys, and then they went with non-shooters, and they did it again last offseason, and then they make the trades at the deadline. And now if you look, and you've got Gabe Vincent coming, Taurean Prince coming on a very favorable 1-year contract, Gabe Vincent making 11, not even the full mid-level. You bring Russell back, you bring Hachimura back. They've got a really good basketball team. And so much of their success ultimately in the regular season specifically, so much of their success will be based on health. And if Anthony Davis can go play 70 games, 72 games, if LeBron can go play 70, 72 games, we're talking about one of the best teams in the Western Conference for sure going into next season, which I know First Take and ESPN will love because it'll be a reason we have to talk about them in a good way.
Every week. Well, and you've been talking, really since the deadline, you've been talking about just the additions, the impact of some of these additions they made then. Our guy, NBA University, did a efficiency breakdown of Reaves after he signed. 1.29 points per possession with AD as his screener. His efficiency was basically the second half of the year was amazing. So Taurean Prince was one of the guys that I was going to mention. Career 37% 3-point shooter, 38% last year, 1 year, 4.5 million. He also just feels like it feels like he's been on. He hasn't had the right team to sort of. He's been under the radar in different situations. He's been on teams when they've not been playoff teams, things like that. It feels like that's the kind of guy we're going to be talking about. Maybe in April and May of next year of potentially making a bigger impact in his contract. The other person I wanted to bring up, who they bought low on, who you played with, was Jackson Hayes. Just because they've had success, Rui was like this. They've had success with a couple of these guys recently who are top 10 picks, who have all the talent in the world, and just what they weren't in the right situation. And I think we probably hope that's the case with Jackson, but he does seem like somebody who knows what's going to happen there. But they clearly, AD likes playing the 4. So it's like, if you can find something with him, maybe that's another person that we talk about later on in the year as being a sort of like another diamond in the rough for them.
Yeah. I think so much of Jackson's success, or at times lack of success, was partly on him. The off-court incident, of course. I was around him for 2 years. Young player trying to figure out how to be a true pro. The talent is there. He's a good dude. And then the other part is Pelicans played him as a 5 my first year. Then they tried him at 3 sometimes. They tried him as a stretch 4 and told him to shoot threes. Like, I think he's going to a situation where he can be asked just to go play basketball and be the best version of himself. So he could potentially be, but I want to go back. I'm just, because I'm thinking about this now as I'm saying this, and I think Hachimura signed for 17, Russell signed for 18 and a half. Like, there's nothing against those guys at those numbers, but Austin Reaves at 12 starting out.
Yeah.
Gabe Vincent at 11. Like, are you that I cannot believe that they got those two guys next season for about $23 million between them. You could make an argument both those guys are worth $20 million a year. So just a fantastic value add with Gabe Vincent.
When we have Austin on the show, I don't know if we'll answer this honestly. We can ask him, but I am curious. Like, he's from all accounts a very smart guy. There's a part of this of like knowing the LeBron effect. You know what I mean? Like knowing how LeBron has helped him. I because Twitter has sucked recently. No idea if I have no idea if there was an actual poison pill offer from another team, or if he just really wanted to go back to the Lakers. So no idea. We'll have to find out maybe directly from him, but I don't know if that's been reported. If it has, I apologize for the lack of info, but I have reached my rate limit twice already. Joining Blue Sky as we speak. The other team I wanted to talk about was Phoenix, because I think that they are sort of neck and neck to me with the Lakers of having the best trade. We don't know what's going to happen with the trades, just in terms of pure free agency. Their impact, the 3 guys in particular, the Eric Gordon deal, 2 for 6 for a guy like that. Is just feels like a flat out steal if he approaches anything of what he's done his whole career. The other 2 were Drew Eubanks, or actually 3. Drew Eubanks, he had 88 at the rim blocks last year, which was 6th in the league. They had an issue with that, obviously, once their depth sort of fell apart in the second half of the season. Watanabe, we saw him a lot in Brooklyn. It felt like when he was playing with KD, he did not miss from the corner. He shot 44% from 3 for the year. And then the guy that a lot of people online were hyped about was Keita Bates-Diop. I was looking up the pronunciation again because I've said it wrong a couple of times, but he was 39.4% from 3, 7'3" wingspan. He can post up smaller guys. He's a guy that like was bouncing around for a while, but they're gonna need these sort of diamond in the roughs to come through, and it feels like they made a bunch of good swings, and we'll see what happens. But just, on their face, their depth was a major problem last year. We know what the Stars are going to bring, And so if they hit on one or two of these guys, they're going to be really tough.
Yeah. Look, if all four guys end up being rotation players in the playoffs, they probably, given the concerns about their flexibility in free agency, then they've won. If two of those guys are, they've won. You would expect Eric Gordon to be, an impact player because he had some good moments in that Phoenix series this year with the Clippers, and he's done it throughout his career. Watanabe, in particular, I think because of his size and his ability to space the floor, is a perfect fit for this team. And I like both Eubanks, who played for the Spurs and was with Portland, and Bates Diop, who was with the Spurs last year. So again, I think in terms of when you have a top heavy roster, it becomes very challenging to improve around the margins. And I think Phoenix, on paper at least, really did that. And they are definitely one of the winners to me in free agency, as are the Lakers. And partly because I think just the Lakers didn't do anything drastic. I didn't think they had to do anything drastic. And then to get Gabe Vincent, I love it.